Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating podcast episode that tackles a massive, incredibly loaded word that exists in almost every single workplace: harassment. When conflict erupts, this one word gets thrown around constantly, right? But as you'll see, it carries severe legal, reputational, and literally career-ending weight. We're going to discover how to properly categorize and handle these super complex conflicts so you can actually figure out what's really going on behind the scenes. So let's just jump right in by asking the core question that every HR leader and manager inevitably faces when a conflict lands on their desk. What are we actually dealing with here? Is the situation actual harassment? Is it deeply hurt feelings? Or is it an orchestrated witch hunt? Knowing exactly which of those three you're dealing with is absolutely crucial. It's the whole foundation of getting this right. To figure that out, we're going to follow this roadmap to untangle the mess. We'll start with the confusion around the word itself, look at the three distinct categories, untangle feelings from facts, cover legitimate harassment and legal duties, and finally, look at where everyone gets it wrong.
All right, Section 1, the harassment confusion. Why one word is doing way too much work in the office.
The podcast really hits the nail on the head here. Most workplace friction just gets flattened into this single, highly charged term. A miscommunication, a rough performance review, an insensitive comment. They all get labeled exactly the same way. The word harassment is currently being forced to do three totally different jobs. It's a strict legal description, it's an emotional description of distress, and sometimes, it's a social weapon. And here's the thing, organizations get into massive, expensive trouble when they try to respond to all three of these totally different situations in the exact same way. Moving on to Section 2, the three complaint categories, breaking down the conflict into actionable buckets. Because if you want to solve a problem, you have to accurately name it first, right? So our first bucket is Category A, actual harassment. This is the legally actionable stuff based on a protected class, like sex, race, age, religion. It has to meet the severe or pervasive threshold. Now, keep in mind, this is a disjunctive legal standard. That means you don't necessarily need a long, pervasive pattern of bad behavior. Just one single severe incident, like an assault or an explicit quid pro quo demand, is completely enough to trigger legitimate liability. Next up is Category B, perceived harassment. This is where an employee is experiencing completely genuine discomfort, but it just doesn't meet those legal thresholds. Think of an employee who gets put on a performance improvement plan. Driven by confirmation bias, they decide their manager is just out to get them. Suddenly, completely neutral actions are reinterpreted as targeted attacks. These claims aren't fabricated in bad faith. The employee's feelings are just miscalibrated to the really heavy label they're using. And then we have Category C, the witch hunt. This is where things get toxic. The complaint mechanism itself becomes a weapon. It's used to remove a manager someone doesn't like or maybe to gain some sort of leverage. Often, this spreads like wildfire through social contagion. One complaint invites others to pile on. The big tell for a witch hunt, the goal isn't to stop a behavior. The goal is to destroy or remove the person, and they will resist any resolution that doesn't end in absolute punishment. Now, you've got to keep this in mind. These aren't just a simple hierarchy of real versus fake. The person complaining often sincerely believes they are 100% right in all three of these situations. This isn't about calling someone a liar, It's about taking a step back and figuring out what the objective evidence actually supports versus what the person just wants to happen. Which brings us to Section 3, untangling feelings from facts, how to actually identify which category you're dealing with. So how do you spot the difference? The ultimate tell for an HR leader really comes down to contrasting motives. A person with a legitimate or even a perceived claim ultimately wants the bad behavior to change. They might actually be open to a documented conversation. But someone weaponizing a complaint, they just want the relationship to end. They'll decline mediation, they refuse to re-engage, they literally just want the accused gone. And that brings us to a massive red flag. If you're a manager and you hear an employee say, "I don't want to talk about it, I just want it handled," pay very, very close attention. It's a huge indicator that you cannot simply act on vague, unresolved feelings. You have to gently but firmly explain that the organization cannot take action without getting specific, documented facts. Now, there's a huge danger in just validating these feelings uncritically because you're scared of the blowback. We know burnout and stress lower people's threshold for what feels like an attack, right? But if HR treats every complaint as confirmed harassment on day one, it accidentally teaches employees that crying harassment is the VIP fast track to getting what they want. And ultimately, That completely cheapens the term for the people who have actual legitimate claims.
Okay, Section 4, handling legitimate harassment actions. What real misconduct looks like and how to fix it. So what do we do when it's real? What does actionable misconduct actually look like in the wild? It's the coworker who repeatedly comments on someone's appearance, even after being told to stop. It's targeting a subordinate right after they reject a personal advance. It's those persistent jokes about a protected characteristic, or maybe a sudden, mysterious drop in performance reviews right after an employee reports a concern. When these legitimate situations pop up, you can't just wing it. Employers have to follow a strict procedural checklist. It starts with a prompt, impartial investigation, not eventually, but right away. You might need to separate the parties. You absolutely must gather objective documentation that is totally independent of either party's emotions. Then implement a proportionate resolution. And finally, and this is key, you have to protect against retaliation and do follow-up check-ins. You can never just close the file and wash your hands of it.
Let's jump into Section 5, the employer's legal duty, where the obligation actually sits.
A lot of companies get incredibly confused on this front. So let's be clear. Employers have a strict duty to investigate promptly once they know, or honestly, even if they should have known about an issue. Willful blindness is not a legal defense. You have to maintain a written, accessible policy and, crucially, act on your findings. Investigating without enforcing consequences is a massive liability. And above all, you must protect the reporter from retaliation, even if their claim ultimately doesn't hold up.
It's also critical to understand the difference in liability based on who is actually doing the harassing. If it's coworker harassment, you're looking at a negligence standard. Basically, did the employer know or should they have known and then failed to act? But harassment by a supervisor, that carries a much, much stricter legal burden, simply because supervisors have the power to take tangible actions like firing or demoting someone.
Finally, Section 6, where everyone gets it wrong. Common pitfalls for both employees and employers. Let's look at where things go completely off the rails for everyone. For employees, the biggest blunders are diluting the term harassment to just mean anything I don't like, refusing mediation, or venting on social media before the process even finishes. On the flip side, employers fail massively when they skip the investigation, engage in subtle retaliation, punish the accused prematurely, or just fail to close the loop, leaving everyone entirely in the dark. You know, one of the single biggest mistakes a company can make is confusing no legal violation found with nothing happened. Just because a claim is legally unsubstantiated does not mean your workplace is fine. Perception issues and interpersonal friction, they still require active, thoughtful management to fix. If you take away just one thing from this entire explainer today, make it this: investigate first. Your job isn't to force every complaint into a neat little box on day one. Your job is to gather the facts and let those objective facts, not the heavy emotions, not the fear of liability, determine which category the conflict actually belongs in. Because if you skip finding out what actually happened just because you're terrified of getting it wrong, you are practically guaranteeing a toxic work culture. The organizations that fail aren't just the ones with bad policies, they're the ones that react blindly. So take a hard look at your own organization. Are your workplace conflicts being categorized correctly, or are you just treating every single fire with the exact same extinguisher? Think about it, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.